Everybody click the comment. Watch Mr. Global's video. Read the comment thread too for context. So, in a video where Mr. Global is talking about how Tangerine Palpatine, the pedophile in chief, is bankrupting this country, I told him, because the week before the election, on my main page, which I no longer have anymore, I told everybody, if you reelect this man, he will bankrupt this country. To which Ian Cycle says, Dems are complicit too. Well, let's see here. We're going to go from the 1980s. Because, see, the 1980s is where this starts. With Ronald Reagan. Yeah. Who was also part of the Heritage Foundation. Back when the Heritage Foundation was just a little budding organization. Their objective at that time was to end the economic policies that FDR had put in place all those years back, saying that corporations had to pay the majority of the taxes. They wanted to institute trickle-down economics, and they got Reagan to do so. In the first year after he did that, he blew a massive hole in the debt and the deficit, and made it to where Congress had to borrow from Social Security. The first time that this has ever happened in history, to cover the debt and deficit that they had blown a hole in. He tries the remaining 7 years, 14 times, I do believe, to try to fix that mistake. But by that time, Congress was very, very happy with the fact that corporations didn't have to pay any taxes. Because then corporations were able to use the money that they would have paid in taxes to buy themselves congressmen, to rig it, to make the laws. Okay? All right. Reagan leaves. We're still in a massive debt and deficit. Bush Sr. comes in. Bush Sr. gets us into a WAR, puts it on a credit card. We lose jobs. We see inflation spike, the whole 9 yards, and the debt and deficit hole gets bigger. He leaves after one term. Clinton comes in. He rights the ship. He's able to balance our budget. He's able to, at the end of 8 years, leave a massive surplus, and had us on a track to not only pay back Social Security Administration for the money that Congress had been borrowing this entire time to cover their asses with, and also pay off the national debt. He leaves. In comes Bush Jr. for 8 years, who continues Daddy's War after 9/11, where he lies to us and tells us that there's WMDs over there. Lies to our soldiers to go over there. Yeah. Sees job losses like we've never seen before. And when he leaves office, we are in the Great Recession, which is bigger than the Great Depression was. Okay? He had bailed out all the banks, opened the Fed, and just let them have it. And an insurance company. Okay? Enter in Obama. Obama bails out the auto industry, which was desperately needed. Got them back on the right track. Saw the creation of new jobs that we have never, in numbers, like Tangerine says, we've never seen before. Yeah. Passes bills that help the middle class with health care, for example. Made it to where healthcare companies can no longer deny people for pre-existing conditions. Told insurance companies by putting into law the ACA that said that 80% of the premiums that customers pay to the insurance companies have to go to our care, and they get 20% in profit. We were able to get preventative screenings so that we can prevent any sort of diseases. When Obama leaves, we enter into Tangerine Palpatine's first administration, to where he got his Jobs and Tax Cut Act passed that gave permanent tax breaks to the 1%, gave temporary tax breaks to the rest of us. We saw the creation of fewer jobs by, I can't remember the numbers, it was a huge amount of numbers, that we saw. That was before C-19 hit our shores. When C-19 hit our shores, he bumbled that and drove us even more into a recession. Didn't order enough vaccines for the people who live in this country. All kinds of things. Enter in Biden, who immediately orders enough vaccines for everybody in America to get the vaccines that they want. Okay. Goes to see to not only see jobs rebound to where they were pre-pandemic, but also to see millions of more jobs added on top of that. He gets the PACT Act passed, which is protecting our soldiers who have been privy to the burn pit that Bush Jr. got them into. Okay. He brings out the Inflation Reduction Act, which lowers inflation from 9% all the way to 2.4%, I think it was when he left office. He gets the CHIPS and Science Act so that we can build semiconductors here. And then in 2024, weeks before the election, I made a video on my first account saying that if y'all vote for this man, he will bankrupt this country. Because at that point, he was an adjudicated rapist, being found civilly liable for sexual assault against E. Jean Carroll. He was a 34-time convicted felon prior to Election Day 2024. He had been found guilty by a jury of his peers for 34 felonies. He was awaiting sentencing at that time. And Ian, just a quick question. Did you march into that voting booth and check the box, fill in the bubble, however the hell you did it? Did you put your mark next to Tangerine Palpatine? Explain to me exactly how the Dems are complicit in the bankrupting of the United States of America when the Dems have been the ones to actually make the 1%, the corporations, pay their fair share in taxes. Instead of them using that extra money that they should be going to taxes to buy a congressperson. And now we know, thanks to Tangerine Palpatine, that signed into law that he had to release those JE files. That him and Todd Blanche right now are violating the very law that Tangerine Palpatine put into power of getting the JE files released. Because in the less than 1% of the JE files that we've been privy to, Tangerine Palpatine's name is in there over 1 million times, making him an accused pedophile. So explain to me again how the fuck the Democrats are in any way, shape, form, or fashion responsible for the bullshit that we're dealing with today. Tell me why we shouldn't be blaming the very ones that went into the voting booth and voted this disaster into office. You've heard the phrase election have consequences, haven't you? That's because your action of going into the voting booth and voting for the adjudicated rapist, the 34-time felon, and the now credibly accused over 1 million times over pedophile in chief. Take some personal responsibility for your actions, son. And stand up and fight against this. You're the only ones that can.